Hi there, this is Cece Zach, and if you've worked your entire life, reached this chapter, which I call the third, and found yourself wondering, now what? Well, you are not alone. Because retirement isn't just about what you're leaving, it's about figuring out who you are now and what you want next. This is the Meaningful Retirement Podcast, where we turn uncertainty into clarity and help you create a life filled with joy, fulfillment, and freedom. So let's get into it. On this episode of Meaningful Retirement, I am joined by a dear friend, Ellen Keszler, a highly accomplished executive, board leader, and advisor whose career has spanned travel, technology, entrepreneurship, and corporate governance, including leadership roles at Travelocity, Business, Sabra, and numerous innovative growth companies. She has built a remarkable legacy by helping organizations scale, transform, and thrive while staying curious, engaged, and future-focused. And what makes Ellen such a wonderful guest for this podcast is that she pairs her professional success with a vibrant love of travel, adventure, and photography, while consistently giving back and volunteering to help others build meaningful connections. She represents what it means to live with wisdom, huge generosity, and the confidence to keep creating joyful new chapters at every stage of her life. And I think she'd agree with me that she me-tired at an early age. So Ellen, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be with Rudy and I today.
Thanks for having me. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Let's jump into it. What's your perception of retirement?
Oh my gosh. For me, I have been quasi-retired for a long time. I was super fortunate. I got a big exit package from a corporate job a long time ago and sort of built a part-time work gig for myself being a corporate board member. And so I was able to sort of move.
Do you mind telling us what age you were at when that happened?
I was 44.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 44. I was married at the time, and my ex-husband and I both got big exit packages at the same time at the age of 44, and we had our retirement number. So fortunate. And so I kind of built this new career for myself, which was being a corporate board member, which was part-time, but super intellectually engaging. But it gave me time to kind of think about what do I want to do with my life. And I think that work was super rewarding. And then I got divorced. And that, I think the divorce, interestingly enough, which, is traumatic for everyone, was an opportunity for me to become the person I was meant to be. And really
Woohoo! I don't want to celebrate divorce for everyone out there, but
it's not.
You go, girl.
It's not the outcome that you want, But for me, I think it just allowed me to pursue my own goals and interests and passions in a very unfettered way.
Was there a belief you had during your marriage that shifted when you realized that you were finding the person that you wanted to believe? Not believe, that you
wanted to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it. I think it just sort of happened. I mean, and this is just sort of a funny story, but when I was married, I had a really good friend, work friend, and he was married and I was married. He says, let's go hike Kilimanjaro together. And Chuck was like, yeah, no way are we doing that. And one of the first things that came to me when I was going through the divorce process is, I am going to go climb Kilimanjaro. Hadn't thought about it in 15 years. And so that's the kind of thing where I think that being single has allowed me to go and do whatever it is that kind of brings me joy. And so, whether it's hiking a mountain or, moving full-time to Colorado or pursuing, new endeavors like I've taken up photography. And so, I think it's a very me-centered life, me-tirement, and that I live. But yeah, I think it's allowed me to go and do what I want to do.
Well, that's a lot to unpack in so many beautiful ways. But let's start with when you realized that you wanted to go to Kilimanjaro, which was when you were going through the process of the divorce. How did that make you feel having something so daunting and yet so rewarding in your sight, your forward
Right.
sights?
So, I was not athletic. I worked out, but I'm not an athlete. And I was super nervous about it because, you go all that way, you want to make it to the top. And so, it was the first time that I'd had a personal goal that was big like that. I'd had a lot of big work goals, but I'd never had a personal goal like that. And so, I trained hard and I cried at the summit because I made it. I was so happy. And, it's to this day my favorite life experience, other than having my kids.
What emotion? You said you cried. What
I
emotion
cried. Oh,
overcame you?
it was joy for sure.
Wow.
It was joy. I think it was a little bit of relief that I'd made it. And just, a great sense of accomplishment.
Okay, so now we fast forward a little bit, and you mentioned that you are finding yourself and you're doing things that I think you really hadn't seen yourself doing before. Um, Tell us what it took for you to just go do these new things. And you mentioned photography. What did it take for you to kind of let go of the past and then just embrace this totally unknown?
Yeah. I mean, I think that I had a corporate career where I was pretty successful. And I think that kind of environment gives you a lot of self-confidence. You're successful in that environment. You contribute, people appreciate your contributions. And so for me, like so many of us, we grow up super insecure, but that gave me self-confidence. And one of the things I also didn't realize when I was younger, I always thought of myself as being kind of a scaredy cat, really. And then over time, I just realized that that is not me at all, that I really am adventurous. And I always have been. I just didn't give myself credit for it. And so, so I think things don't scare me. And I think the possibility of failing doesn't really scare me because when you work, you ultimately, all of us fail, right? And so you learn to pick yourself up and keep going. And so I don't know that I have anything, great insights here, but I think I just realized that why not go for it, right? And, you mentioned earlier that I definitely have this carpe diem
Oh,
view
girl,
of
yeah.
life for sure. And I think that to some extent comes from the fact my father died when I was in high school. And so you realize life is short, life is fragile, and you never know. And so at some point in my life, I was probably in my, 40s, I just was like, you got to go for it, right? And every day is precious and let's make the most of it.
So you touched on the word confidence, self-confidence, and it's ironic that your professional life, you left your professional life with that. When I left my professional life, I was completely demotivated. I had, this high-powered, great title job and was traveling the globe, running, multi-billion-dollar P&Ls. But I left without self-confidence. And of course, the terms of how I left was different. And it's interesting because even though there were times of great confidence in there, I have really struggled coming out of that and finding myself because I always wanted to go back to the old identity. It didn't seem like that with you at all. I mean, you had two major life quakes happen. One was I think you ended your career earlier than you had thought you would. And at the same time, the divorce was somewhere around there. And yet there's this self-confidence that sounds like you were exuding at the time. And was there anything that you did to help bolster that? I mean, was just going for it one way of helping build that? Because I really struggled with it, and it took me a long time. And if there's something in there to help others.
I think that I always, when I was in the corporate career, had advocates, people who helped me, right? They saw the value I could deliver and they helped me in my career. And they gave me feedback, right? And so I think that feedback was super helpful. And there's a lot of, I can't think of what the saying is, but you sort of bullshit your way through it until, you
Yeah.
kind of get there. And for sure, I mean, I've always had imposter syndrome.
Yeah, me too, girl.
Big time, big time. And, I mean, I have sat on public company boards, private company boards with big Silicon Valley private equity guys and venture capitalists. And, you go in there and you're like, and here's me. What have I, in comparison. But I think that they have appreciated the contributions that I've made. And so that, I think has helped me bolster my own self-confidence. And now I've forgotten sort of what the line of discussion we're going on here. So I don't know where
Well,
we're going with this.
it's around how to help people find confidence after life quakes. And, you mentioned your advocates, which was great. But I think there's something unspoken in this is that you recognize your own value. And we're able to generate awareness as opposed to someone like me that, after these life quakes, I really doubted my value. I mean, not to any scary detriment, but I had to find just find the value that I bring to me and recognize that no one could ever take away all the great things that I've done in the past. But there's an innateness, I think, in you of understanding your own value that I think all of us could learn from.
And I don't know, I'll be honest, I don't know where it comes from because, again, I think about myself as being insecure, when I was younger and all the imposter syndrome. But again, maybe it comes back to that just sort of my belief that you got to live your life and make the best of it. And so why not just keep going and, pushing myself. And, I'm a learner. I'm a continual learner. And I don't want to just sit around and, let my life sort of fritter away. And so I'm always sort of looking at what's the next kind of fun thing that I can do that's fun and different and I think pushes me.
Out of your comfort zone.
Out of my comfort zone.
There it is.
There it is. I mean, I think about this one story when I was a little girl in elementary school and on the playground there was one of those like fire escape poles. Never in my life would I jump down that fire escape pole because I was like afraid of it.
Was it really like, with the hole of the second floor?
And totally. Never once did it because I was kind of scared. And at some point I think I just realized, you just have to go for it. And I'm not sure where that courage came from. But I do think it comes back to I got a lot of self-confidence from my work. And even though I was laid off, which was it was the worst day of my life up until that point, right? I mean, it's such a blow to your ego.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I just sort of picked myself up and said, I've just got to keep going. I don't know.
Well, let's go back to the personal goals, which was something that you identified post these life quakes. And you are a continual learner. What do you do? What's your process or your process for identifying these goals and then going for them? Because, you are by far out of all of my friends, the most extraordinary, curious adventurer in so many different facets of life.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that and how that has contributed to who you are today.
Yeah. So, I've always been very goal oriented.
And help me define goal versus an outcome, like goal being an achievement whereas I look at an outcome as like, all right, this is how I felt from it. And, because at the end of the day, I look at achieving a goal for the feeling I'm going to get because I can check off the box and not have a great feeling after it. Right.
Right.
But help me kind of understand with those two separation of definitions between goals and outcomes.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, again, work-wise, very goal-oriented, right? You set annual goals and objectives.
Yeah.
And so you get used to doing that. And at some point, I incorporated that a little bit into my own personal life. And I think that, I read a book about how if you can visualize the future that you want to achieve, that is super helpful to help it to getting you there. And so for me, that was sort of goal, or setting of the goals was sort of visualizing where I wanted to be. And
Yeah, but that's one step further. And I just want to clarify that too,
Okay.
is that, you may have a goal to hike Kilimanjaro, but I think what you're saying is that you take it one step further and you envision yourself at the summit holding up the sign that says, I made it.
probably so. I mean, I'm not sure I did in that specific example, but yeah, I think so, because it isn't just about the goal. It's about what is it what is it you're trying to accomplish, right? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I do
and
think
how
that's
you
right.
feel.
And I don't think I've ever really thought about it before, but for sure, it's how you feel. Yeah. But I think I sort of incorporated that into my day-to-day life. Every year I kind of sit down and think about goals for the year. And I remember you and I have had this conversation many times because we did very similar things when we turned 60, which
Oh, I'm
was
so happy you're bringing this up because you're such an inspiration in this.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. So one of my girlfriends said to me, "Oh, you're turning 60 this year. It's a big deal. Make a big deal out of it." And so, first of all, I threw myself a big birthday party, and then I decided that I was going to have one experience, adventure, challenge every month of my 60th year. And I wasn't like, so focused on it had to be every month, but I wanted to have a dozen. I wanted to make 60 remarkable and memorable. And I had so much fun planning it, just thinking about what are the really fun, unusual, different things I can do this year, and then going out and doing it. And so that was a really eye-opening experience for me at 60. And so now every year, so I kind of once a year kind of think about my goals. I think, what am I going to do this year that's going to make this year really memorable? Because you don't want to just sort of go through your life, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
so when I think about what are those things that are going to be memorable, I think they're things that are going to bring me joy, for sure. Joy, sense of accomplishment, and continuing to grow and push myself. Yeah.
What has been the most challenging one to date that you've experienced, and what did you learn about yourself through that?
Wow. Well, we're going to have a lot of dead space here while I think about it. I mean, for sure, I think the most challenging thing I ever did was the Kilimanjaro hike. Just
Wow,
because
and that was your first one.
it was my
Wow.
first. Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing experience, and much of it wasn't that hard. But, well, I don't know if this was the most challenging, but it's sort of how I ended up here in Colorado, maybe, because this has been a long time coming, and I've told you this story before, that when I was growing up, we did these big camping vacations. I grew up in the flatlands of East Texas, and I just loved the mountains. And I skied for the first time in college, and I made a vow right then and there that someday I was going to live in the mountains of Colorado because I just loved it so much. And so when I was married, we bought a house here, and then right after that, I got divorced. And I was like bound and determined that this was my destiny, was to live here in the mountains. And I don't know that it was a hard thing to do, but it was a financial stretch, and it's one of those things that was the best thing. It was one of the best decisions I ever made, was moving here, living here.
So through the research that I've done around the zones of influence, place is one of the 5 Ps. And for me, it's where someone can find rest, reflection, and rejuvenation. I know you find that here, but can you talk a little bit about why it was the best decision?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a former Texan, and I can remember I grew up in the
Ooh,
pine.
a former. I
Yes,
like that.
former
You've
Texan.
never said that to me. Okay.
Former Texan. I grew up in the piney woods of East Texas, which were, flat but kind of pretty. And then I lived in Dallas for 30 years, which is one of the least attractive, beautiful, one of the least beautiful places in this country. And so what I realized is every time I'd come to the mountains and ski, especially when I came to Vail, flying to the Eagle Airport, and as we're driving from the airport to Vail, I would just be overcome with feelings of joy.
Oh, I can see it in your face now.
Yeah.
You have it in your eyes as well. Yeah.
I mean, it just makes me so happy. It's so beautiful. And, I knew I loved to ski, and I'd always liked to hike. And so I just thought, I can do those things here. But I don't think what I really expected was just every day you get up and you look at the mountains and, it makes me happy. And the community here, right, of like-minded people that love the outdoors, but also, there's so many super interesting people here that have lived interesting lives before they got here. But that's not even really what's important, I mean, people just really bond, I think, here over their mutual love of the outdoors.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that's such a beautiful description of place. And when it adds in the community in addition to, just the visual of nature, it adds, and not to mention that there are so many things that we love to do here, just in a small, 10, 15-mile radius. It really is an extraordinary place. And I wish that for everyone. And it doesn't have to be, in Vail. I mean, it could be, a hiking trail at someone's house or just even a meditation spot in someone's room.
Right. Absolutely. And everybody's is different. And I just think about what my life was like in Dallas. I go to the gym and that was sort of my activity. And, versus here, you just go out and you take a hike and you're out in nature and, nature just sort of speaks to my soul. And it's just a very rich kind of active. It's a much more active lifestyle, certainly, than I ever would have lived in Dallas, where I would go to the gym, and that would be kind of it. And that is something that I don't think I really understood before I moved here. And then I moved here and I'm like, yeah, it's amazing.
Well, and with active lifestyles, but there's also the challenges of what our body can keep up with. And it was just so interesting. I was doing an interview earlier today, and because we are active, we find that our physical body sometimes can't keep up with it, and we get frustrated. And I know you've had situations where you have been frustrated with your body, but yet your physical just wellness, but yet you still get so excited about these activities. And so tell me a little bit about how you've the mind over matter thing has, help you persevere and still do the things that you love, even though at some parts, for me, it was my heart
Right.
that stopped me from hiking for a good period of time and skiing. How has that helped? I mean, hindered you in any way? And then how did you rise above it?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I've had a whole string of injuries.
I know. I didn't want to come out and say it. I figured I'd let you say it to the
string
the
of
listeners.
them. And so, and I think injury 2 and injury 3 were the result of not getting back in shape after injury number 1. But, so I tore my ACL like 15 years ago for the first time here skiing. And I used to always say, I work out because I love to ski. This is when I lived in Dallas. I work out all year long because I want to be strong when I go and ski. And so, one of the sacrifices, quite honestly, one of the decisions I made was I tore the ACL the second time. I'm sure I did it playing pickleball. And, pickleball is the number one cause of visits to the ER for people of our generation, our age. And so, I made the kind of challenging decision of giving up pickleball because I love to ski and hike and bike even more. And I don't want to be one of those people. I don't want to be that statistic of another person going to the ER with a pickleball injury. So anyway, yeah, I mean, our bodies don't always keep up with what we want to do because I would love to still be doing that. But for me, maintaining my health and being able to do all the other things I love is more important than that.
I love that. And you know what is amazing is because you and I had a chance to go skiing earlier this year, post your last ACL surgery. And you and I both had the discussion about it. It's about being in nature. It's not about what we did before. It's like letting that past go and just being able to go down the mountain and feel, the air in our face is worth anything to get back out there, right?
For sure. And when for a very long time, I said I want to be skiing in my 70s. Now I say I want to be skiing in my 80s. And I definitely understand it won't be the same then as it is now. But yeah, there's that sense of peace and beauty and the exhilaration of skiing down. And yeah, I mean, it just sort of feeds my soul.
What would you say to listeners that have given up something because they're like, oh, I can't do it the way that I used to do it? And I'm talking about an activity. What would you say to them today? Because the wonderful positive attitude that you have about just being out there What would you say to them if they've stopped skiing or stopped doing something that they absolutely adore because they're like, I'm afraid or I can't do it the way that I used to? What would you say
Yeah,
to
I
them?
mean, the person who says I can't do it the way I used to, I would sort of say, well, that's okay, right? I mean, we all age, and
Yeah.
if you loved it before and you still love it, yeah, maybe you just need to let that go. Yeah, I used to be a whatever, and now I'm not anymore. For me, yeah, I don't think never was like a great athlete, so it's not like I'm not achieving what I used to achieve. But if you really love it, why wouldn't you just keep doing it? I guess is kind of my view.
You know who I'm thinking of right now? You watched the Olympics. I think we watched a little bit of the Olympics together, is the woman that won the ice skating gold, who gave it up and then came back to it with such a different attitude. And I can't remember why she gave it. I just think she didn't like it. It's not because she wasn't performing, but it just wasn't giving her that joy.
That joy.
And she came back, and now it's more joyous for her. And, here's what was she, 19 years old, teaching us that lesson?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so I guess the question is, if you've given it up, but it could still bring you joy, why wouldn't you do it?
Exactly.
But if you're
Thank
tired
you.
of it, that's different, right? You sort of been there, done that. I've skied my whole life, whatever that activity is, I can see that. But yeah, and I'm realistic, right? I know I won't be doing the same thing 10 years from now that I'm doing now, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, because it is just sort of a fact of life. At the same time, yeah, you just have to keep pushing yourself, right? Because the minute you stop trying to keep getting better and doing more, or just challenging yourself, then you start to go backwards, and you don't want to do that.
So when you make your annual goals, as it relates to what you may do to push you out of your comfort zone or what the new adventure is there a subconscious criteria that you use that maybe listeners could benefit from as to, how do you find something that is really going to bring joy in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think I look for different and unique experiences. So it could be like one of them for this year is I'm going to jump out of an airplane, which I've always wanted to do.
You didn't tell me that. Oh, yes.
So, yes.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So I'm going to go with my two sons. So I'm super excited about that. We're going to do it this summer. And travel is a big...
Wait, let's just unpack that one for a minute. Has that been on your list for years, or is that just something that the kids brought up and
Nope, this is my idea. No, it's been on my list for a while. Yeah. I went paragliding a few years ago. That was super fun. And jumping out of an airplane's always been on my list.
So what did your kids say when you were going to do this?
Well, I started off by asking my older son if he would like to do this as his birthday present. And he said yes.
Oh, wow.
And so then I thought, well, I need to invite my other son too. And he said yes. Yeah. I've done the indoor iFly. I don't know if you've ever done that.
No, I haven't.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's only in Texas, I think, right?
No, there's one in Denver.
There is?
There's one in
the gravity thing?
It's called iFly.
Oh, I got to go.
You can do that. I think it's north of Denver. So we had done that when they were teenagers. And so I think that, and I was kind of able to do it. And so I thought, why not? So the question was, when I think about goals for the year, what do I want to do? There are things, new experiences, and for me, I'm a big traveler, and so a lot of that is, where are unique places on this planet that I haven't been before that I'd like to see? And so I kind of think about that. I mean, you always like to go back to some place you've been before, but, I mean, there's so many amazing places, so travel is a big part of it. And so I think those often are kind of new experiences and travel. Those are kind of
okay, but let's not forget photography, because that is such an amazing thing for people going into their third or in retirement to pick up. Tell me how you picked that up and how long and what is the criteria for your trips around photography?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm like a lot of people. I've always liked to take pictures.
Not just selfies, you mean?
Not just selfies.
You're not a selfie girl, so.
Oh, I am a selfie girl, but I take a lot of other pictures too. And then I had some friends, and they take these photography trips, and they're like, maybe you'd like to try that with us. And so I bought a camera and took a class at CMC and started taking pictures. And it's, using a camera and all the setting. I mean, the cameras today are amazing, but it's a new skill, right? And so that's been good for me, is to learn a new skill. And one of the things I've learned is to be a really good photographer, you have to be patient. And and that, I always like to say patience is a virtue I was born without. I'm really not very patient. But I've now been doing this for a couple years, and I just got back from a trip that was a photography trip. And one of the things I really had a big realization on this trip was, my impatience is a problem, and it's something I really need to focus on, because I just want to get in there and get a shot. And I don't, you just really need to sit back and think about it and plan it a little more, right? And so that's kind of there's always growth, and and there's a lot of different types of photography that you can do. So this is a great, kind of new learning kind of thing for me.
I just think it's extraordinary. And for your listeners out there, we'll have to put Ellen's Facebook, where would you have photos that people could see, because they're extraordinary. That's what I'm trying to say is your photos are extraordinary. I don't think you have a website, but
I don't. I've been thinking about it. I mostly just post on Facebook when I travel, but I have, they come by my house.
There you go. Yes, we'll invite you all over to Ellen's house, and she's a phenomenal cook as well. Ellen, if there was, any advice you would give to listeners that are stuck, transitioning from the second third to the third for whatever reason it may be, a life quake, and just being stuck in a transition, not letting go of their previous identity, whatever it may be, what advice would you give them?
Well, I guess, my first piece of advice is life is short, and figure out what it is that, makes you happy and gives you purpose, and just know that our lives aren't over as we enter the third. And, we now have the time. I think that's the biggest thing about retirement is that now you have time. And so how do you want to optimize that time? And for me, it's given me a lot more time to focus on all those sort of being healthier things, whether it's cooking more and eating better, getting out, getting more exercise. But I just think it's the gift of time. And what do you want to do with that gift?
Yeah, because time is our greatest asset.
It's our greatest asset and scarcest resource.
Yeah,
right.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Ellen, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I have learned so much from you. I mean, chock full of ideas and thoughts, and between the personal goal setting and outcomes you're looking to achieve, the fact that you're so growth minded and a continual learner. The way you use visualization to get to where you want to go, which I'm sure helps during the trying times. I mean, those alone are just phenomenal traits that you have that I hope our listeners look at. And, I carpe diem, girl, because our lives aren't over. And I do hope you go back and find that fire pole someday and someone takes a video of you. Because I believe it's in Texas, right?
It is in Texas.
Maybe you'll have to take me there and I'll go video it for you.
Maybe we just go to the fire station here locally.
That's you too. You're always great at coming up with good solutions to, whatever type of problems. But before we go, I just wanted to say this, that transitions like this are hard, and letting go of who you were to figure out who you are now is a big shift. And Ellen is such a wonderful role model of gracefully making that shift and doing it with such joy and purpose. And if you're feeling a little uncertain or a little lost out there, you are not alone, because this is where something new begins. When you understand who you really are, you create a life of joy, fulfillment, and freedom, and you don't have to do it alone. Please reach out to me if you'd like at my website, www.ccizak.com. And until next time, listeners, keep creating a life that feels meaningful to you. And a big mwah to my dear friend, Ellen.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.